Alright, looks like we are live. How is the audio? Got a new mic for this one, so we can see if this works any better. Hello. Finally back with another 3D print from the iFactory printer. Yeah, this is a big one. I've been doing a bunch of tests, getting the printer upgraded. I'll go over a few of the upgrades in a minute, and then we're gonna get a 111-hour print going. It's gonna be quite an undertaking. This is not my first attempt at this. I had a few mess ups, so hopefully I got all those bugs worked out, and we will have a nice clean print throughout this process over many days. 111 hours is just over 4. All right. So let's see. Got one person. Okay, well, we will get things going here, and if you got any questions, let me know. But we're going to be going over a few of the upgrades that I've put on this thing, and then while this print's getting started, and then show a couple of the other projects I've been working on. Alright, well, no reason to wait any longer. Let's get this thing rolling. I got the file already sliced up and ready on the printer. Get the last few little things off here, and we will get this print started. Alright, got our zoom in. Alright, well, we're going to do this from the touchscreen here because everything's already preheated. We have belts hot, hot ends hot. What else we got? Got all our filament loaded up, ready to go. Get into a bit more of the details once we get started, but alright, start the clock on this very, very long print. Yeah. So, a couple of things. We have a bunch of new upgrades to the system. Once this thing gets moving a little bit, you'll be able to see the new fan shroud that's on there. A few other key features: new extruder here, new all metal hot end, addition of a second cooling fan on this side here. So it's got one on each now. And then we have, let's see, what else did we get in here? New motor brackets here that have some additional strengthening pieces on both sides. Upgraded the belts to the gate belts. And then what else did we get? But a couple other upgrades, but for now, we got the print going. All right, we got one for 2 people watching. All right. Ooh. So now that this thing's going, let me switch over and talk a little bit about the details of this print. Actually have so this print is predicted at about 111 hours, looking at 5 kilograms, just under 5 kilograms of filament, and $100 in plastic. I was able to get some Overture PETG. I got a pretty decent deal on that for this print. And then I've been playing with the settings quite a bit. We can quickly go through those and I can share this profile. So one of those upgrades I made was the all metal hot end allowed me to push a little bit faster and more material out. So I switched up to a 0.6 millimeter nozzle. Help speed this print up a little bit. So we have slightly bigger layer height, 3.5 shells. Got some overlap there, some minor retraction, but we do have a larger extrusion width, hopefully to help smash that material down and get really good layer adhesion. Cooling wise, kind of set that pretty low. This is PETG, so we want to keep it hot. I do have the bed at 90, which is a bit hot for PETG, but during some of my tests I've noticed that we have a bit of an issue with super wide prints. Part of the problem that we have there is the super wide prints can curl, not because they're not stuck to the print bed, but because the print bed's flexible. So even cranking down the tightening, the tension with the print belt, it's still seeing a bit of flex at that, even with that temperature nice and high. But the increase in the temperature seemed to help let the print be a bit more malleable and stay closer to the bed to have a few less issues. All right, let's see what else we got. Switch back to this close up here. So the print's doing pretty well so far. Pretty good layer adhesion. No issues seen so far. This print is completely solid, so it's going to be quite a lot of plastic. Like I said, it's about 5 kilograms of plastic, which puts it comparable to a real snowboard. So what I have here, I'm going to go ahead and switch this thing back. So this, let's talk through some of the things that we've done already. So the first one was a 50% scale print, 50% in all directions, so pretty thin. It's crazy that this is just half the size, but it's half the size in each direction. So I used it as a bend test and just see if I had any issues with it. This one definitely had some layer shifting issues. Since then I've upgraded the belts. I've added some hard stops in to protect the print belt, and some other things to help eliminate this issue here. But for a small scale test, it did pretty well. But this one here, this was the full scale test. This is not solid. It's only got 2 perimeters, 15% infill. It was about 1.5 kilograms, so not very heavy. But it was a really good test. I learned some things. Had some print issues here. Quite a lot of extra stringing that caused some issues in the center. But most of that's going to be cleaned up and not noticeable. I use this as a couple of different things. I did a bend test on this as well. You can see that the tips are up, even though that the entire thing was printed flat. And then the other thing I used this for was a epoxy test, because the belt itself is pretty rough, but with this epoxy it actually cleans up quite nice. So what you can see here, get that nice shine. This is a couple of different coats of epoxy. I'm using Smooth On X3D. Hold on. There we go. XTC 3D from Smooth On. It's a simple 2-part epoxy. Self-leveling, which is really helpful when you're working with something this big. So it does help smooth itself out. As you can see, this is 3 layers of epoxy. You can't see the belt material anymore. And for the most part, it is pretty smooth. There are a few things here and there near the edges, but again, this was a test. So added quite a bit of weight. It's got about, I haven't weighed the new one, the new board with all the epoxy on, but it's a little bit heftier now. Feels a bit more solid, but as you can see, this is highly flexible, and probably a bit too much flex for a standard snowboard. Not much confidence that this would be able to hold me, or just snap in half the second that you started going. All right, do we have 2 people? All right. Well, if either of you have any comments or questions, please shoot them my way. I can talk about print settings, other prints that I've done, a lot of failed prints, various reasons why each of those failed. So as I said, I went through and tried this several times. I have quite a lot of different failed attempts here, various distances in the print that have failed. None of them got very far, but luckily I was able to learn what the issues were with each, and that allowed me to get this big scaled full scale test done. A couple of the issues that I ran into were stringiness, which was collecting on the nozzle and then depositing in random spots on the print, one of which actually caused a big enough spot to shift the entire print. And when you're working with basically the max space that you have for the printer, that causes quite a big issue. So I got those issues cleaned up. Printing a lot cleaner now. My most recent failed print was this one. So this one failed for a different reason. For the most part, it was pretty clean. Had a little bit of clots and stringiness in there. A little bit collecting on the bottom, which again, I think I've got most of that fixed. But the issue here was the same as I had on the big one there. The actual print belt decided to not move forward for a couple of layers, causing the filament to jam up and stopped extruding for a while. So both of those times happened when the seam was coming around the roller. For this one, it was around the back roller. I believe I had the belt tension too high, and the motors were not able to pull that seam over. The other one, this one, actually was when the seam was going around the front roller and detaching from the print. So I had a suggestion from Steve about using some hairspray as a release agent. Ran a quick test on that this morning, and it seemed to work well. Got a little deposit here. Trying to stay out of its way. There we go. Yeah, I don't have a lot else to say if I don't have comments, so let's see. 2 people. Oh, so many. Sorry. Oh, 17 minutes. All right. All right, so another print that I did earlier was this fun little penny board. It's hard to see, but there is a penny board up there that I printed in multiple parts on that printer over there, one of my original printers. And I had to do it in multiple parts, obviously, because I didn't have print space that was big enough. So this was one of the first larger scale prints that I did, and it turned out really well. This was done in PLA, not fully solid, so writability is probably medium low. Depends on where you stand on the board, obviously. It's got a bit of flex in the center. This was all just painted, but it was more of a proof of concept, making sure that the printer was working well. And I had nice clean print lines. This one had no major issues, some minor issues here in the print, but nothing some paint doesn't cover up well. So one thing we can get into a little bit more is some of these upgrades and the rationale behind the upgrades. So first off, we upgraded to a dual drive extruder, a BMG clone, I believe, and that definitely helps with the Bowden setup here. We're trying to drive a bunch of filament into there since we have that bigger nozzle to keep the print speeds as high as possible, and a nice clean extrusion here. The next upgrade I went with was a Micro Swiss all metal hot end, as well as Micro Swiss hardened steel nozzles. This one is a 0.6 millimeter nozzle, definitely helping me to keep my print speeds a little bit higher, and reduce the overall print time of this very long print. Originally, I was using a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and it was 200 and something hours plus to get this print done. I got it down to 111 hours, so that's a big improvement. Instead of 8-10 day print, it's going to be about a 4-day print. Much more reasonable. Other upgrades. I went ahead and added dual fans here, and redesigned a new fan shroud that mounts all three onto the same shroud, as well as has the cooling ducts at the bottom there. Upgraded to the Gates belts. What else? Oh, I upgraded all the T-nuts. Instead of the swivel T-nuts to the lock-in T-nuts. Gives it a bit more solid construction there. I also designed new motor mounts here that screw into a couple of different points around the joint to give it a bit more structure there. Keep it nice and tight. Another aspect of this setup is we are actually going with the mosaic pallet. Since I am going through several spools of filament here, I was only able to get 1 kilogram spools. We are running the mosaic pallet here in multi-spool mode. We got 3 and a little bit spool wise. Once that runs out, it actually splices a new spool in pretty cleanly. One of the cleanest slices I've seen of that pallet. Does a really good job there. I've tested it out a few times. I do need to be around when that's happening because the print is moving much faster than the pallet can handle for the slice, but that's not a big deal. Just got to be in the room, give it a little extra leeway there. And then once that spool's run out, I can just pop a new one in and it'll pull from that as it goes. Let's see. Not much else here. Any questions, comments, concerns? All concerns. Always the concerns. Yeah, overall, hopefully this is going to be a pretty clean print. Hopefully I won't have to babysit it too much. Once it gets going a little bit further, we're going to add another time-lapse view, this little guy here. We already have one in the back there. We have the standard Octopi time-lapse. We will be doing a couple of more live streams of this. Definitely one at the end, once it gets, all the way out there. Luckily this table just is big enough to support it all. And might do 1 or 2 in the middle somewhere. If any issues arise, I might pop up a live stream pretty quick and run through a live stream. Troubleshooting any issues or anything that I find. So yeah, I think that's about it for this one. This thing will get going not excessively fast. It does about 20 millimeters an hour, I believe, once it gets to the full width. So yeah, I think that's going to be about it for this one. We'll get a couple more going, as I said, and hopefully they will be a little bit more interesting once this thing gets a ways down this sprint. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. and I'll see you guys next time.